The laughter hit first, sharp, jagged, echoing off the marble walls of the ballroom like shards of glass. Then the words followed, cruel and rehearsed. Eat white cake, hide black. The hostess in crimson silk, her smile wide, her finger pointed, delivered the line like it was entertainment. A dozen tuxedoed guests roared, their teeth flashing under chandeliers that dripped like frozen fire. And at the center of it all stood a woman in a simple white dress, her face covered in whipped cream and sponge, still, silent, unshaken. The cake had landed square across her cheekbones, collapsing against her skin in slow surrender. Crumbs slid down her neckline, red berry filling staining the satin like blood. Yet she did not flinch. Not once. Around her, the gala churned into spectacle. A man in a bow tie slapped his knee as if this were the finest joke of the night. Another raised a glass, toasting mockery itself. Phones were raised, not in solidarity, but in voyeurism. The chant began in whispers. Hide black, hide black. But she remained upright, shoulders squared, breathing even. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to her. Her name, unknown to them, was Maya Ellis, 41 years old. Builder of empires disguised tonight as a quiet guest. No diamond necklace, no headline entrance, no entourage trailing behind her. Just a white dress, minimalist earrings, and the calm of someone who had already survived this scene 100 times in different costumes, different decades. The hostess leaned closer, voice dripping with delight. What? No words? Not even a thank you for the cake? The crowd laughed harder, the sound swelling until the ballroom ceiling trembled. But Maya did not wipe her face. Not yet. She let the cream cool against her skin, let the sugar sting her eyes, let the weight of their mockery hang heavy in the air. Her silence was sharper than any protest. Across the room, a young waiter froze mid-step, silver tray trembling in his grip. His eyes darted from the hostess to Maya, then back again. He knew something about this scene felt wrong. He wasn't alone. A woman near the piano pressed her lips tight, unsure if she should clap or cry. The hostess threw her head back, golden curls catching the light. See, she doesn't belong here. Not with us. Not tonight. The words sliced through the air, and still Maya stood. Face covered in cake, but dignity intact. Because this was not the first ballroom that tried to erase her, and it would not be the last. The ballroom shimmered with money. Gold trim along the walls, chandeliers polished within an inch of perfection, champagne towers stacked like crystal mountains daring gravity to intervene. Tonight's gala was billed as the White Charity Ball, an evening of elegance, exclusivity, and excess. Everyone arrived to be seen. Sequined gowns that caught every flashbulb, tailored tuxedos that whispered old money, laughter pitched just loud enough to signal belonging. And then there was her. Maya Ellis had walked through the grand entrance 30 minutes earlier, unannounced. No sponsor's plaque with her name, no ribbon-cutting photo op. She chose anonymity, and anonymity in a room like this was dangerous. She wore a simple white dress, sleeveless, with clean lines that made silence look fashionable. No diamond choker, no designer clutch. Only a quiet posture, back straight, steps even, as though she had rehearsed this performance 100 times before. Which, in truth, she had. The hostess, Serena Vale, had spotted her the moment she crossed the marble floor. Serena, 35, blonde, ambitious, socialite by branding, gatekeeper by habit. To Serena, the gala was her stage. She decided who belonged in the spotlight and who should fade into shadow. Maya, in her plain dress, looked like shadow. The irony? The event they celebrated, this carefully curated evening of champagne and string quartets, was bankrolled by the very woman Serena just humiliated with cake. But no one in the room knew it. Not yet. Maya chose not to reveal it. Not yet. She wanted to see them raw, unmasked by etiquette, stripped to instinct. And instinct had come fast. Suspicion, ridicule, mockery. At the far edge of the hall, a pianist slid into a waltz, pretending not to notice. A pair of donors whispered about audacity and dress code. One man, glass of Merlot in hand, muttered loud enough for 3 tables to hear. She doesn't even look like a guest, more like staff sneaking a seat. Maya heard every syllable. She'd heard them before, different voices, different venues, same contempt. At 24, she was mistaken for a server at her first fundraising dinner, handed a tray she didn't carry. At 30, she was told a VIP lounge was for executives only, as she waited to sign a merger. At 37, she was denied a seat at her own conference, until her assistant arrived with credentials thicker than a novel. And now, at 41, in a ballroom she had financed, history repeated itself with sugar and sponge. She didn't speak, didn't correct them. That was her power, letting silence make the room show itself. Near the champagne tower, a junior caterer whispered to a colleague, "She walked in alone. No table number." The colleague shrugged. "She'll be gone soon." They turned their backs, not knowing the floor they stood on was paid for by her signature. Maya lifted a napkin, dabbed the corner of her mouth, and breathed slow. The humiliation was not the story. The test was. And tonight, the results were being written in real time, with every smirk, every whisper, every slice of cake thrown in arrogance. The laughter did not die. It multiplied. Like a contagion, moving table to table, glass to glass. One cruel moment had become the evening's entertainment. Serena Vale, the hostess, basked in it. She circled Maya like a predator who had tasted first blood. "Ladies and gentlemen," she called out, raising her flute of champagne, "a toast to authenticity. Some people dress up, but the truth always shows." The crowd chuckled. Some clapped. Others simply stared, curious to see how far the spectacle would go. Maya remained still, her hands folded neatly at her side. From the edge of the room, a man in a velvet jacket muttered, "She probably slipped past security. These events attract all kinds." His companion, a woman dripping in pearls, leaned closer. "Not surprising. They'll do anything for attention." It was loud enough for Maya to hear, loud enough for half the room to hear, and still she didn't move. Two waiters exchanged nervous glances. One whispered, "Should we step in?" The other shook his head. "She's not on the list. Management will handle it." Management. Almost on cue, the event director Thomas Crane, tall, stiff, 52, strode onto the parquet floor. His tuxedo was immaculate, his expression even more so. He was the kind of man who confused rudeness for authority. "Ma'am," he said, his tone polished but cold, "this gala is for invited guests only. I'm afraid you'll need to step outside." Gasps rippled. A few phones tilted higher. This was no longer just laughter. This was escalation. Maya blinked once, slow, as though giving the room a chance to reconsider. Thomas did not. "If you refuse, security will assist. We can't have disruptions in front of our donors." He emphasized our, as if to reclaim territory he never owned. The hostess grinned wider. "Yes, darling. Let's not ruin the evening. She's already had her cake." The room erupted again. One woman near the string quartet frowned, whispering to her date, "This feels wrong." Her date hushed her quickly. Silence was safer. Maya's silence was different. It wasn't fear. It was control. Thomas gestured toward the ballroom doors, summoning two guards from the shadows. Their black suits blended with the decor, but their intent was clear. They were here to move her, to erase her, to escort her out like unwanted clutter. The pianist faltered, a note striking wrong. The room noticed, then ignored it. Serena stepped closer, voice dripping with mock sympathy. "No shame in leaving, sweetheart. Better to exit quietly than embarrass yourself further." Maya lifted the napkin again, wiped a streak of cream from her cheek, and set it gently on the nearest table. The gesture was deliberate, controlled, an answer without words. And the silence grew heavier. Around her, the narrative had shifted from humiliation to hostility, from cake to threat. The whispers hardened. "She doesn't belong. Escort her out. This is for us, not her." The test was accelerating, and the results would be undeniable. The ballroom waited for an explosion, a scream, a protest, some kind of fire to match the spectacle. But it never came. Maya Ellis did not argue. She did not plead. She did not even brush the crumbs from her dress. Instead, she inhaled slowly through her nose, out through her mouth, the kind of breath practiced by people who have had to carry storms inside their lungs. Her silence unnerved the room. Thomas Crane cleared his throat, unsettled by the lack of resistance. "Ma'am, please," he repeated. "You need to leave." His voice wavered ever so slightly, the polished veneer cracking. Still nothing. Serena Vale, desperate to maintain control of the narrative, leaned down so her face hovered inches from Maya's. "Don't just stand there. Say something. Defend yourself." Her tone was sharp, but her eyes flickered with unease. Maya blinked once. That was all. The crowd murmured, uncomfortable now. This was not the scene they had expected. Laughter thrives on reaction. Without one, it curdles. At a nearby table, a young woman in emerald silk whispered, "Why isn't she yelling?" Her companion shrugged. Maybe she knows she can't win. But Maya wasn't thinking about winning. She was thinking about timing. At 25, she had been dragged out of a hotel lobby for insisting her reservation was real. She remembered shouting then how her voice echoed, how the staff only tightened their grip. Rage had given them justification. Tonight, she would give them nothing. A glass clinked nervously. The pianist struck the wrong chord again. Even the chandeliers seemed to hum louder in the silence. One of the security guards stepped forward, heavy shoes on parquet. His hand hovered near her elbow, ready to force the exit. Maya didn't flinch. She simply shifted her gaze, steady, direct, a look that landed on him with the weight of command. The guard hesitated. For a fraction of a second, he saw not a trespasser but something else. Someone else. Serena snapped her fingers. "What are you waiting for? Remove her." The guard froze, then stepped back. The tension thickened. The crowd's certainty wavered. Was this woman truly powerless? Or was there something unspoken in her calm? Maya lowered her chin slightly, as if in silent prayer, though her mind was anything but passive. She was counting, measuring each insult, each order, each witness. Let them pile the evidence themselves. Let them perform their own indictment. Thomas shifted, tugging at his cufflinks. "This is disrupting the gala," he said again, but softer now. Maya did not answer. She let the room hear its own cruelty. Let the silence stretch until it became a mirror. And in that mirror, some saw ugliness they could no longer ignore. The silence didn't last long. It cracked under the weight of technology. From the far side of the ballroom, a faint red glow appeared, the tiny recording light of a phone camera. A young man, no older than 25, stood near the champagne tower. His suit was off the rack, sleeves a little too long, but his courage was precise. He angled his phone toward Maya and whispered to no one in particular, "This needs to be seen." His voice carried. Heads turned. Phones shifted. What had been mockery moments before now edged into spectacle of a different kind. Documentation. Evidence. Serena spotted him immediately. "Put that down," she snapped, her voice slicing across the room. "This is a private event." The young man didn't flinch. His hand trembled slightly, but he held the phone steady. "Private doesn't mean invisible," he said, louder this time. A murmur spread. Guests exchanged glances, some curious, some uncomfortable, some suddenly aware of their own faces being captured. Near the string quartet, a woman in her early 30s, staff, not guest, slipped her phone from her apron pocket and pressed record as well. Her name was Elena Ruiz, a junior event coordinator who had seen too much and spoken too little. Tonight, she couldn't look away. Thomas Crane noticed her, his eyes narrowing. "Elena, stop that at once," he ordered, authority cracking like brittle glass. But Elena shook her head. Quietly, almost trembling, she said, "Number. People need to hear this." The crowd gasped not at Maya this time, but at Elena. A staff member defying her boss was nearly as scandalous as a guest refusing to leave. Maya's eyes flicked toward Elena, soft but steady. She didn't smile, didn't nod, but the recognition was clear. The silent had found their voice. Serena tried to regain control, her tone shrill now. "This isn't a circus. She's not supposed to be here. Why are you siding with her?" A man at the back answered before he could stop himself. "Because you're humiliating her in front of everyone." His wife tugged at his sleeve, whispering for him to sit down, but it was too late. The words had joined the air, heavy and undeniable. The pianist stopped playing altogether. The music could not compete with the sound of awakening. Phones were everywhere now. Not all filming, but many ready. Some guests whispered into their mics, narrating what they saw. Others simply stared, realizing the story unfolding would not vanish when the lights dimmed. Maya remained still, calm. Her silence now had allies. One by one, the room began to fracture between those desperate to protect tradition and those unwilling to stomach its cruelty. And in that fracture, the truth found space to breathe. The fracture widened. Whispers grew sharper, louder, until Thomas Crane decided silence was no longer enough. He stepped closer, voice rising above the murmurs. "Ladies and gentlemen, please. This woman is not a guest. She is trespassing. She does not belong here." The words landed like a verdict, cold and deliberate. A few guests nodded quickly, eager to align with authority. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Phones tilted higher. Maya Ellis didn't move. Serena Vale seized the moment, her tone dripping venom. "You hear that? Even management confirms it. She's a fraud." Someone dressed in white, thinking it makes her equal to us. Her laughter was brittle, forced, desperate to mask the fear creeping into her eyes. Gasps echoed. A man in the corner whispered, "Fraud?" His companion replied, "That's a serious accusation." And just like that, the room's energy tilted darker. What began as mockery was now slander, broadcast to dozens of witnesses and dozens of cameras. Elena Ruiz, still holding her phone low but recording, stepped forward slightly. "Her name is on the list," she said, voice trembling but firm. "I saw it this morning." Thomas turned on her like a whip. "You will be silent, Elena, or you will be unemployed." His words cracked like a threat rehearsed many times. The young man by the champagne tower spoke again, louder this time. "She hasn't done anything. You're the ones turning this into a scene." Serena scoffed, tossing her hair. Typical. Always playing the victim, hoping someone will come to the rescue. The crowd gasped again, less laughter now, more shock. Thomas doubled down, sensing his authority slipping. "Security!" His voice boomed across the parquet floor. "Escort her out immediately. This disruption ends now." The guards moved again, heavier this time, determination in their stride. The air thickened. Even the chandeliers seemed to dim. Maya raised her chin slightly, her first deliberate movement in minutes. Her eyes scanned the room, steady, unblinking. She was not pleading. She was witnessing. And the witnesses, one by one, felt the weight of being seen. Near the string quartet, a guest muttered, "This is going too far." Another whispered, "She hasn't spoken once. Why are they so afraid of her?" "Because silence is its own indictment." Serena sneered, stepping in closer, voice pitched high enough for every phone to capture. "She's not a donor. She's not a guest. She's nothing. Just another pretender trying to taste a world she'll never own." The words echoed, bitter and final. And in their echo, the room itself shifted no longer just humiliation, but open denial of her right to exist in that space. It was escalation. It was exposure. And Maya Ellis still had not spoken. The ballroom had turned tribunal. Serena stood as prosecutor, Thomas as judge, the crowd a restless jury waiting for punishment. The guards closed in, their black suits blending with the marble columns as they reached for Maya's arms. The first hand brushed her sleeve gentle at first, testing. Gasps rippled. Phones lifted higher. Maya did not resist. She simply turned her head, eyes locking on the guard with a gaze so steady it froze him mid-motion. But Serena, drunk on her own theater, wasn't satisfied. She grabbed another slice of cake from the buffet table, vanilla and red filling smeared across porcelain. With a laugh that rang hollow, she hurled it toward Maya. The plate shattered at her feet. Cream splattered across the hem of her white dress, crimson streaks staining the fabric like wounds. The room fell silent. The cruelty had crossed from spectacle to assault. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Another, "Did she really just?" Maya remained still, her breath even, her shoulders squared. The second cake slid down her gown in silence, a mark not of shame but of evidence. Thomas Crane stepped forward, voice hard now. "Enough of this. Remove her." The guards tightened their stance, one reaching again for her elbow, the other circling behind. Guests shifted in their chairs, torn between complicity and conscience. From the corner, Elena Ruiz shouted, trembling but clear, "Stop! She hasn't done anything. This is wrong." Thomas's voice cracked like a whip. "You're finished here, Elena. Pack your things tomorrow." But Elena didn't back down. "I won't lie for you." A murmur spread through the crowd. Phones zoomed closer. What had begun as mockery was now documented brutality. Serena sneered, wiping frosting from her manicured hand. "See? Not even brave enough to speak. She knows she doesn't belong." At that, a woman near the orchestra pit finally spoke up. You don't belong acting like this." Her husband tugged at her sleeve, but she shook him off. The air shifted. The cruelty no longer landed clean. It cracked under the weight of witnesses. And yet Thomas pressed on. "Escort her out. Now, the guard stepped forward again, more forceful this time, one hand reaching for Maya's shoulder. Still, she did not move, did not shout, did not struggle. Instead, she lowered her gaze briefly, as if counting each second, each insult, each witness, letting the ledger fill. Her silence was not surrender. It was strategy. And the night had just crossed its line. The guard's hand hovered inches from her shoulder when Maya finally moved. Not fast, not loud, just deliberate. She reached into the small clutch at her side, a simple leather piece, unnoticed until now, and drew out a phone. Her thumb pressed once, the screen lighting up like a fuse. The ballroom hushed. For the first time that night, all eyes were on her action, not their performance. Maya lifted the phone to her ear. Her voice was calm, even surgical. "Carla, Protocol 7, now." On the other end, a woman's voice responded instantly, crisp as glass breaking. "Confirmed, Miss Ellis. Freezing the gala fund. Initiating audit." A collective shiver moved through the room. Some didn't understand, but a few did, and their faces drained of color. Thomas Crane's jaw clenched. "What do you think you're doing? Calling the police?" Maya turned her gaze on him, eyes sharp, voice low. "Number, I'm calling the owner." Serena laughed, brittle, desperate. "Owner? Of what?" "Certainly not this gala." Maya said nothing. Instead, she repeated into the phone. "Suspend all vendor payments. Lock every contract tied to tonight's event. And mark the video feeds as evidence." Carla's voice came back steady. "Already done. The transfer logs are red flagged. Their accounts will see the freeze in 60 seconds. A gasp swept across the tables. Several guests checked their phones, scrolling with sudden panic. One man muttered, "My sponsorship wire just bounced." Another said, "What the hell is happening?" Serena's smile faltered. "She's bluffing. All of this is bluff." Maya lowered the phone slightly, letting the words hang in the charged air. She didn't shout. She didn't argue. She simply stood in a white dress now streaked with cake and crimson filling, speaking in commands that landed harder than any scream. The young man by the champagne tower whispered, half to himself, half to his camera, "She's not bluffing. I don't think she ever was." Thomas stepped forward, anger masking fear. "Enough games. This is still my event, and I will not—" Maya cut him off with a single phrase, calm and absolute. "Your event? Check again." Haberty. The words struck harder than Serena's cake. Phones buzzed. Screens lit. Alerts popped up on accounts linked to the gala's operating fund. Frozen, blocked, suspended. Serena's champagne flute slipped from her hand and shattered on the parquet. The sound echoed like a gavel. And for the first time that night, the room went truly silent. Maya Ellis had begun her counterattack. The silence stretched, brittle as glass, waiting to shatter. All eyes locked on Maya, face streaked with cake, dress ruined, but posture unbroken. Thomas Crane tried again, desperate to reclaim authority. "This is ridiculous. Whoever you think you are, this is trespassing. Security, finish it." But before the guards could move, Maya lifted her phone once more, her voice measured, deliberate. "Carla, confirm for the room. Whose fund is this event running on?" The reply came sharp and amplified, every syllable carrying across the ballroom. "Ellis Foundation. Principal donor, Maya Ellis. Total active assets allocated, $4.1 billion. Gasps detonated like fireworks. A woman near the front clutched her pearls. A man dropped his wine glass. The young guest filming whispered, $4.1 billion? His voice cracked with disbelief. Thomas stumbled back a half step, his confidence punctured. Serena froze, her lips parting but no words escaping. The crowd had shifted in an instant from spectators of mockery to witnesses of revelation. Maya's eyes swept the room, calm, steady. For the first time that night, she spoke not just to Carla, not just to one person, but to everyone. "You wanted me gone because you thought I didn't belong, because I didn't fit your dress code, your pedigree, your imagination of wealth. But this entire gala, your lights, your champagne, your stage is here because of me." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The quiet authority landed heavier than any shout. Serena's cheeks flushed crimson beneath her makeup. "Lies," she spat, but her voice quivered. "Anyone can claim to own—" Maya cut in smoothly. "Check your contracts. My foundation's name is on every page. Without me, tonight is just an empty ballroom with unpaid staff and silent music. Ugh. As if on cue, a violinist lowered her bow, uncertainty spreading down the line of the quartet. Musicians exchanged glances. Their pay came from that very fund. Guests pulled out their phones, fingers scrolling frantically through email confirmations, sponsorship notices, financial updates. The more they checked, the paler their faces became. The truth wasn't whispered anymore, it screamed from every screen. Maya Ellis was not just a guest. She was the reason the gala existed, and she had been humiliated in her own house. The weight of that realization pressed heavy on the room. Chairs creaked as guests shifted, no longer comfortable. Some looked away, ashamed. Others stared, transfixed by the reversal unfolding in real time. Serena Vale, the woman who had thrown the cake, stood trembling, her power dissolving with every second. Her voice cracked into the silence. You set us up." Maya's gaze sharpened, her reply precise. "Number I tested you, and you failed. Next, The ballroom erupted not in laughter this time, but in stunned, uneven applause. The trial had turned. The verdict was clear. The applause was uneven, scattered, hesitant like raindrops before a storm. But it was enough to tip the room. Phones that once captured humiliation now streamed vindication. The young man by the champagne tower whispered into his mic, "She owns it. She owns all of it." His video ticked upward in real time, hearts and comments flooding the screen. Across the room, panic spread like smoke. Thomas Crane fumbled with his cufflinks, suddenly sweating through starched linen. He whispered to an assistant, "Check the contracts. Now." The assistant scrolled frantically, her face blanching as the confirmation appeared. Ellis Foundation, principal donor. She looked up, throat dry, unable to form words. The quartet stopped playing altogether. Silence filled the air where music had been, amplifying every breath, every nervous shuffle. Serena Vale swayed on her heels, her earlier confidence shattered. She clutched the edge of a table for balance. This can't be true," she muttered, but her voice cracked under its own weight. The frosting on her fingers, once a weapon of ridicule, now looked like evidence of her own downfall. Guests began to murmur. Louder now. "She's the donor? All of this? Hers? They humiliated the sponsor?" A woman in emerald silk shook her head, horrified. "We laughed. We clapped. We joined in." Her voice broke into a whisper. "We're on camera." Several guests lowered their phones, not out of respect but fear of being implicated. Too late, the moment was already captured, multiplied, shared beyond the ballroom walls. Near the catering station, Elena Ruiz stood taller, her phone still recording. For the first time, her voice rang clear and unwavering. "I told you she belonged." The words carried, a strike of conscience cutting through the chaos. The guards who had reached for Maya's arms now stepped back, their authority evaporating. One muttered to the other, "She signs the checks." They froze in place, unwilling to touch her again. Thomas tried once more, clinging to whatever scraps of control remained. "There must be a mistake." Maya's gaze silenced him before she spoke. "This was no mistake," she said evenly. "You revealed yourselves, all of you, and the world is watching." Cameras zoomed closer. The world was indeed watching. The hashtag was already forming, voices outside the ballroom joining in. Serena's champagne flute lay shattered on the floor, forgotten. Thomas's authority crumbled. Guests fidgeted in shame. Staff whispered to each other, already calculating where loyalty belonged. The collapse was total. The woman they had mocked now stood at the center, not as victim, but as gravity. And gravity always wins. The ballroom held its breath. All that shimmer, all that gold, all that arrogance now dangling by a thread in Maya Ellis's hand. She lifted her phone once more. Calm, surgical. "Carla," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. "Terminate Horizon Events contract. Effective immediately." The reply came crisp, undeniable. "Confirmed. Horizon Events removed from vendor registry. All payments canceled. Their access revoked." A ripple of shock ran through the staff. Horizon Events wasn't just the organizer, it was their employer. Thomas Crane's face collapsed as the words landed. His phone buzzed a moment later, an alert flashing across the screen. "Access revoked. Account suspended." "No," he muttered, voice hollow. This can't." But it already had. Maya's gaze shifted to the guards, who now stood frozen, their earlier bravado gone. "Gentlemen," she said evenly, "you work for Horizon Events. As of this moment, you no longer do." They lowered their eyes. Neither moved. Neither dared. Serena Vale staggered forward, her crimson gown catching the chandelier light. "You can't do this," she spat, desperate. "I built this night." Maya turned, her expression unreadable. "Number, you decorated it. I built it." The crowd murmured some gasping, some nodding, all recognizing the difference. Serena's voice cracked, shrill. "You don't understand. People like me." Maya cut her off, voice quiet but lethal. "People like you are why I own the room." The line landed like a hammer. Phones captured every syllable. Carla's voice came through again, clinical and final. "Miss Ellis, shall I lock out individual staff as well?" Maya's reply was soft but absolute. "Do it. Thomas Crane, Serena Vale. Any executive tied to tonight. Remove their credentials, permanently." Across the room, Thomas's phone buzzed again. Red screen. Access denied. He staggered backward, pale. Serena's bracelet-locked phone chimed, then went dark in her hand. She stared at it, trembling, her mouth opening without words. The young man by the champagne tower whispered into his mic, "She just erased them. Gone. Right in front of us." Applause broke not hesitant this time, but fierce, rising from pockets of the crowd. Guests stood, clapping, not for cruelty but for justice delivered live. Maya lowered her phone, wiped the last streak of cream from her face, and set the napkin gently on the table. Her dress was ruined, her silence intact, her authority absolute. The punishment was swift, the verdict irreversible. In less than 3 minutes, she had dismantled the entire event staff without raising her voice. And the world was still watching. The ballroom was unrecognizable. A half-hour earlier, it had pulsed with champagne, gossip, and cruelty disguised as sophistication. Now, silence weighed heavier than the chandeliers above, broken only by the sharp applause of those who had witnessed justice unfold. Maya Ellis stood at the center, her white dress streaked with cake and red filling, a portrait not of shame but of survival. Around her, fragments of what once looked like control lay scattered. Serena's broken champagne flute, Thomas's useless phone, the smirks of guests melted into uneasy stares. She didn't rush to fill the silence. She let it grow, let it settle into every corner of the gilded room. Only when the stillness became unbearable did she speak. "You wanted me out with cake," she said, her tone measured, her words deliberate. "Instead, you watched your entire house collapse." Gasps again. Phones lifted higher, capturing the line that cut sharper than any knife. She took one slow step forward, her heels steady on the parquet floor. "I don't need to shout. I don't need to beg. My existence is proof. My presence is power. And tonight, you showed the world why we still need both." The applause grew louder now, genuine, building like thunder rolling across marble. Guests who had laughed minutes ago now clapped hardest, as if trying to drown out their guilt. Others simply lowered their heads. A shame. Maya's eyes scanned the room, pausing on Serena Vale, who stood pale, trembling, frosting still smeared across her hands. Then on Thomas Crane, collar loosened, eyes hollow, neither dared to speak. Finally, Maya lifted her chin and delivered the closing line that would echo far beyond the ballroom. "You mistook silence for weakness. That was your last mistake." Phones captured it, streams carried it. Within minutes, hashtags would ignite across platforms, videos would spread to millions, and the story of one woman humiliated with cake but rising with billions would travel farther than any chandelier's light. She turned then, calm, composed, every step deliberate. Guests parted like waves, some applauding, some whispering, all aware they had witnessed the collapse of arrogance and the rise of something greater. At the doors, she paused once more. Not for them, but for herself. A quiet breath. A reminder that this wasn't the first time she had been tested, and it would not be the last. But tonight, the ledger balanced. Tonight, dignity had the final word. And then she was gone.